So 1931, the traction company gets back its park, still known now as Philadelphia Rapid Transit. They opened in 31. During the Depression, marathons were a big thing, and so this is a off-season marathon picture. The giant racing coaster was removed, and you can see that it begins to say amphitheater, but they had a big amphitheater, and in 32, California Frank and his group of Sioux Indians showed up, and they would have a demonstration in the amphitheater. One of his underlings, Buck Taylor, came back in 33 and 34, and they had rodeos. Again, this ground is all where the giant racing coaster was. Also in the 30s, the traction company begins to upgrade all the rides. Gone is that massive shell, that covered pavilion that was here. 1931, they do modifications. 34 and 39, they'll rebuild the track work. New cars, more sleek, more up-to-date. This is 1934, was the old mill. It became the Lost River in 37, and then many of you might remember it in 1948 under its last name, the Tunnel of Love. But anyway, that's it there. Also in the 30s, they rebuilt the fountain. The fountain had gone defunct by 31, and it was rebuilt in 34 and named the Sousa Memorial Fountain. Sousa had died 2 years before, and Frederick W. Darlington came out and redid the fountain. It was a shot water 100 feet in the air, and you can see in the background going on is the firemen all shooting their hoses off too. A nighttime shot. This is the 30s with Danceland. Danceland will change in 1939 to Skateland, and they will outfit the casino for dancing. And so Skateland will be there. That was the only thing at the park that was open on a year-round basis. And again in December, a week later, December 27, 1948, Skateland will burn to the ground, and they will put in kiddie rides here in this slot. This is the facade for the racing coaster, which was the amphitheater. Now it's an arcade. 1939 also is the debut of the Swan boat. It was built by Ellsworth Trout of Roslyn. I don't have a good photograph of it, so you'll have to suffer with a linen postcard. A fascinating thing that's always been interesting to me is hearing the rumors about the accidents at the park and how such things were suppressed, and there were so many of them. And I think part of that comes from James Michener's book, Fires of Spring, where he talks about Paradise. James Michener, growing up, worked at Willow Grove Park. And of course, there's these horrible fires and accidents and people dying left and right. Well, I had access to the surviving records from the Abington Police Department, and they recorded anything reported to the police or anything that went to the hospital, because the police station was right outside the hospital. So basically by year, the date of the accident, the ride that had happened, how many were injured, of the injured, did any die, and then the details about that. So the Thunderbolt was good for messing up your shoulder. The chase through the clouds, somebody fell off and died. And the Mountain Scenic Railway, there was a four-person injured lady who died the following day at the hospital. Otherwise, there's no, other than the chap who fell out of the boat, and I'm not sure how that happened because his girlfriend was at the hospital and identified him. He fell out of the boat and drowned, which I really don't attribute to being a dangerous situation. I think he probably was showing off, and that was that. And most of these accidents, they were treated and discharged that day. There's a couple people that wound up staying in overnight. Not as horrible as I thought. Around 1940, they put this up, and they added the entrance for the parking. 1942, the park, this is for the PRT picnic, but the park was open all throughout the war. Here's a couple shots that were made for a specific purpose, but the folks from Willow Grove Naval Air Station came down and up from the Navy Yard. This is the Fun House, which was originally Bluebeard's Palace. Around the early 40s, that great rail yard that they had built with all the turnarounds and everything for the trolleys, that was greatly shortened. In 1940, they stopped running trolleys up York Road. That only left the the number 6 trolley coming up from Glenside, and so you can tell that the park is really moving away from public transit, and they're relying on people by car to get there. This is an aerial view of 1948 or thereabouts. I just figured that anybody who's living in Upper Moreland, I mean, look at your ground. Here's the park. This is Easton Road meeting York Road, and then that's York Road going up to Hatboro. This is Easton Road going up here. Here's the park. The Alps, the Scenic Palace is gone. They've started to add rides in here. And what will happen is whereas this area was originally the center of park in the early days, it all migrates to around the midway, and it's all about the rides. The further and further the park goes through history. These are a few shots from the 50s. This is near the Nickel Scenic, the Tilt-A-Whirl, the Tunnel of Love, the Thunderbolt. They put a Wooder Scooters in where Venice burned, and this is the front of it. It was like a big ship. Ferris wheel came back to the park in 1940. Now we're into spaceships on the flying machine. You have a laugh in the dark next to that. There's another aerial. Candyland, which had been built in here, has been since removed. The big facade for the racing course is gone. It's now just an arcade. You're standing atop the Thunderbolt. Here they go by. So these shots are from the mid to late 50s. There's a flying scooters right there. This is what happens to old color pictures. That's the entrance to the carousel. A more general view. Here's a wonderful comparison, 1906 versus 1956. We're looking up the midway in both shots. There's the carousel building. There's the carousel building. There's your scenic coaster, your Nickel Scenic. Here it is right there. The other thing that's interesting, in the mid to late 50s, in the early days, up until the 50s, the guys who operated the rides collected your money. Now that doesn't sound too good if you're the head of the park, right? And I think they probably did pretty well for themselves. In the late 50s, in 56, 57 time period, the park switched to you bought your tickets at a central location, and then you just turned in a ticket when you got to the ride. They said within a day of them instituting it, like the majority of the staff quit. No longer a profitable endeavor. 1956, the Rotary Club of Willow Grove sponsored the Navy Band to do a Sousa concert. This was the last concert in the pavilion. The pavilion would stay and come down in March of '59. A couple rides that were added after the Sputnik went up. They decided to take what's basically a standard amusement ride. They stuck a globe in the middle and called it the Satellite. This is another ride that debuted in 1958. It was called the Mouse. There was a great competition among parks at that time period for good rides. And so these design was smuggled out of Germany. It was a great coup that it was built at Willow Grove Park was the first place where it was built. And I've gotten to this picture, and I neglected to say, in 1954, the transit company sold the park. They put it up for auction. There were 2 bidders. The top bidder won it by just a hair. The problem is that the top bidder didn't have any financing. So the top bidder went to, the underbidder was the Hankins. The top bidder then went to the Cohen brothers down in Baltimore, who owned the Pimlico racetrack, and got financing. And so from 55, 56, 57, and 58, and 59, 5 seasons, the Cohen brothers owned the park. And then in 59, December 1st, they sell it to the Hankin brothers. So in this picture, at the top of the steps is Mo Hankin. Below him is Joseph Halprin, who was the superintendent of the park, John Palmieri, who was the general manager, and this is Sam Hankin. The other 2 brothers were already in Disney World. These guys were off to Disney World to look at new rides. What they found in Disney World was the world's largest bowling alley at 112 lanes. They said, well, we can do better than that. So they came back and built the Willow Grove Park lanes, which was 116, beat them by 4. The building of this eliminated that second boating lake. It eliminated the bandstand and the pavilion. They had to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff in order to put that in. So you can see the amusement park is moving more and more to the south. This is the Waterfall Cafe. One of the problems with this will be is that there's too much water. They built it on top of a lake. Your bowling, your boards need to be of a certain quality and dryness in order to have professional bowling. They could never attract the pros because they were sitting on top of a lake.